From Batman Beyond to Crisis on Infinite Earths, these DC movies almost happened. Welcome back to Nerdist News. I'm Dan Casey, and today we're venturing into the phantom zone of development hell inside the DC universe. Last week, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Wonder Woman 3 is not moving forward at Warner Brothers, at least in its current iteration. That report also included a number of other question marks around the DC universe's future that could spell the end of the DC universe as we know it. Now, the report also included details about how newly minted DC Studios CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran are pitching their plans for the next decade of DC films and TV shows this week. It also led to a cavalcade of other reports ranging from James Gunn taking to Twitter to set the record straight, to The Wrap revealing that Wonder Woman 3 writer-director Patty Jenkins allegedly sent the Wikipedia page for character arc to Warner Brothers execs. Okay. The Wrap's report included mention of a Warner Brothers insider confirming a number of pre-existing DC projects that nobody was going to mess with. That list included Matt Reeves' Batman sequel and TV shows, the Ta-Nehisi Coates written Black Superman project, and Joker Folie. Wonder Woman 3 was also reportedly on that list of exemptions to James Gunn's mission to rebuild the DC universe, but clearly things have changed, at least as of last week. Then, on Friday, The Hollywood Reporter's Heat Vision newsletter appeared from the ether like Mr. Mixie-Pidlick to spill the beans about several other DC projects that were in various stages of development. Now, though, they seem more doomed than anyone that would walk down a street named Crime Alley in the dead of night. It's literally called Crime Alley. First on the list is a movie that could still feasibly happen someday, but just not in its current form, Man of Steel 2. According to THR, Man of Steel 2 was in active development as a starring vehicle for Henry Cavill to get a proper Superman sequel. Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight turned in a treatment for a script, but unfortunately while it could leap tall buildings in a single bound, it wasn't faster than a speeding studio exec giving notes. In the form of bullet points. Brought it back around. Nailed it. Speaking of Henry Cavill, though, that one-off cameo in Black Adam wasn't the only plan DC had to bring everyone's favorite Warhammer superfan back into the role of Superman. According to THR, there were plans for a series of cameos in upcoming movies to lay the groundwork for a massive crossover film inspired by Crisis on Infinite Earths, featuring Cavill returning as Superman at the heart of the movie. For those who don't know, this 1985 limited series is one of the most iconic events in DC Comics history. Much like the DC Extended Universe is now, the DC Universe at the time was in complete disarray thanks to its vast and sprawling multiverse. To consolidate these myriad multiversal realities and make a unified DC Universe, writer Marv Wolfman and artist George Perez created a gigantic storyline in which worlds collided, universes died, and countless DC heroes were rebooted to hit the reset button on continuity. Now, it's no surprise to hear this was the plan, as it's something that we've speculated about since at least 2016 following the release of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. For now, though, it seems like the biggest retcon in the DCU will happen off-screen. But with that said, the DC Universe is still getting its own dose of multiversal mayhem in The Flash next year. The movie is set to adapt the events of the Flashpoint comics, in which Barry Allen makes a bit of an oopsie-doopsie when he goes back in time to prevent his mother's murder. They should call it Oops All Berries. I said! Speaking of The Flash, one of the biggest selling points of that movie is that it's going to bring Michael Keaton back into the DC universe. He's going to reprise his role as Batman in a costume that hopefully has slightly more neck mobility this time around. We'll see. He won't. But that wasn't intended to be Keaton's only return to Gotham City. Apparently, Warner Brothers was also deep in development on a Batman Beyond movie written by Batgirl and Flash writer Christina Hodson. The film would be based on the late 90s animated series of the same name, which follows a much older Bruce Wayne trying to fight crime well past his prime in a high-tech batsuit, only to take on a protege in the form of Terry McGinnis, a cool teen with black hair and a strong sense of justice. In other words, the ideal candidate for Bruce's next boy wonder. He's got a type. And this isn't the first time Warner Brothers has tried to make a Batman Beyond movie either. Way back in 2000, Warner's tapped Remember the Titans director and writer of the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, Boaz Yakin, to helm a live-action adaptation of Batman Beyond. The script is going to be written by Batman Beyond co-creators Paul Dini and Alan Burnett. And according to the LA Times, Yakin wanted a futuristic Blade Runner-type Batman, with Clint Eastwood playing the role of the aged Bruce Wayne. Unfortunately, Yakin's concept for a hard-edged, darker, and nihilistic Batman with swearing and violence didn't exactly resonate with the studio, and the project soon fell apart over creative differences.
And make no mistake, I will kill you.
Instead, the studio turned their attention to developing an adaptation of Frank Miller's Batman Year One alongside director Darren Aronofsky, which also eventually fell apart. Years later, Matt Reeves' The Batman is about as close as we're going to come to seeing that particular adaptation on the big screen. As for Batman Beyond, it could still happen someday, but for the time being, it's on pause. Anyway, folks, there you have it. That's everything you need to know about 3 DC movies that almost happened, but unfortunately did not. As for what the future holds for the DC universe, your guess is as good as mine. James Gunn recently took to Twitter to proclaim that Superman is a huge priority, if not the biggest priority, so it's a safe bet we'll get plenty of DC's trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman back in the limelight. But in what capacity, we'll have to wait and see. Now, each of these projects could still see the light of day at some point down the road, but I wouldn't expect Crisis anytime soon, especially because Marvel is still building towards Secret Wars and chasing the multiverse rather than building a unified universe. That's kind of the point of Crisis in the first place, so why don't you just bypass that and tell some good stories?
What do you think?
For now, though, tell us, what do you think of this news? Which of these movies would you have most wanted to see, and why? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, make sure you stay tuned to Nerdist.com.